welcome to Supt Scoop. I'm your host and Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Kenneth R. Hamilton. This episode marks the start of the 2017-2018 school year. Our students were welcomed back on September 7th. More than 8,000 students and almost 1,500 staff members came back to a school district that spent all summer preparing for their arrival. And we have some great things to share about this school year. Opening day went smoothly. Teachers and staff were excited to start the new year off, and the uniform initiative has been so well received by our parents and our community. We are extremely excited about that, and we encourage you to continue to support the implementation of this mandatory school uniform policy. A few weeks ago, we received some exciting news from the New York State Department of Education, which outlined our standardized achievement test scores. And I am proud to report that across the board, our district has made tremendous improvement. Our state test scores on both ELA and mathematics saw large increases across the board. This is evidence that our renewed focus on improvement and transformation of our district are indeed taking root and yielding very positive fruit. Our Associate Superintendent, Dr. Claytisha Walden, recently presented this information to the Board of Trustees and the community at a public meeting. Please take a look at her presentation at the meeting where she shared this data with the public.
I stand before you because I am so excited to share this wonderful news of the progress of our students.
This has been uploaded to Word Docs for the board? Okay. I'm sorry, Dr. Walden.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Hamilton. Actually, everyone can follow right along as there's the presentation slides as well as a packet for the board as well. We are most fortunate to educate over 8,000 students ranging from pre-K to grade 12 here in our district, where on average our student attendance rate is about 91%. With our students with disabilities about 18% and our English language learners about 8%. About 74% of our students are economically disadvantaged, eligible for free lunch as well as reduced lunch. We have a number of our schools in good standing as well as focus and priority schools as well. This evening I'd like to focus on our data trends. And I have great news to share as we've made considerable progress. In terms of our increases of grades 3 through 8, as many of you are well aware, the state has recently released the latest performance of our students. And there has been an increase in our proficiency rate. That means levels 3s and 4s. In fact, 85% of our elementary and middle schools have increased in English language arts. So that's phenomenal news. In fact, 100% of our elementary and middle schools have increased in the areas of mathematics. Additionally, an increase in our proficiency rate of our subgroups, meaning our English language learners and students with disabilities. And when we, recently the state just released our unadjusted mean growth percentile. So we have an increase in that as well. So we're really on the right road. We have a ways to go, but we are certainly on the right road. In terms of our secondary schools, high schools in particular, a steady increase in our graduation rate, an increase in our post-secondary college plans. So that means an increase in students that are aspiring to go to four-year universities. Our district participation rate has increased in English language arts and mathematics, and Thornton High School achieved over a 92% graduation rate. This really speaks to a team approach under the leadership and vision of Dr. Hamilton, our superintendent of schools, and our trustees, as well as the talent of the entire cabinet, our administrators, our school leaders, both principals and assistant principals, teachers, and the great collaboration with many of our partners, as well as our community members. So it's really a celebration of a combined effort. And one of the mantras of Dr. Hamilton is that college doesn't begin as you're entering. It begins in pre-K. So really the vision and the wonderful leadership of the visionary of the district is a full day pre-K. So we have our pre-K 3 program that through Dr. Bennett Conroy's office, we have a tremendous increase from last year, 54 3-year-olds and now 90. And there are 25 on the waiting list. So this really speaks to looking ahead and looking at the legacy that we are leaving our youngsters in our community. And then under Dr. Hamilton's leadership, Universal Pre-K, or our 4-year-olds, over 300 youngsters are being educated. So really this speaks to the great work of a combined effort. So some of the things to keep in mind that's significant about pre-K is that the students' proficiency rate grew. And I got this straight off the press from our pre-K administrator, Dr. White Wallace, from 47 to 79% in a year. That speaks to letter sound recognition, naming letters, a bit of vocabulary, and so you see that really the vision long term. Now, when we look at our pre-K and we look at kindergarten, what are some of the other measures that we have in place? We have DIBELS, which really speaks to early literacy skills. And if you notice, there's an increase of those that's on or above grade level, but also a decrease, which is a good thing, of students that are below or at high risk at our kindergarten level, and the trend is also going in the right direction for our first grade students. So when we look at legacy and we look at predictors of high school graduation and post-secondary success, we see it starts well before the testing years. Now, as we go into our testing grades, grades 3 through 8, we have a great deal to celebrate. Many of our focus and priority schools have increased considerably in ELA proficiency rate. I see our Principal Doggett, principal of Rebecca Turner Elementary School, that school alone increased by 21%. So kudos. A.D. Davis School, our school that's under receivership status, increased by 10%. So we are well on the right way. Our schools in good standing has increased as well. Parker Elementary by 11, Lincoln School by 5. So as we look, and you can see the steady growth over time, really with our, under this leadership, we see that we've had a steady growth of about 15% over the last few years with proficiency rate. And remember, that's level 3s and 4s on the state exam. Now, as we look at the proficiency rate by school, there has been growth as well. So when we're looking for a marked improvement, again, as I shared, 85% of our elementary and middle schools have increased. And you see that this is broken down so you can see value added over time. By grade, when we look at proficiency rate by grade, this really speaks to curriculum focus. This really speaks to the instructional trends that's happening grade by grade. And we see many of our grade levels have increased. One of the things that we do as a group, as a team, when we look at curriculum analysis, we look specifically at how students are performing. So when we look at the performance index, understanding that is a range of 0 to 200, and that speaks to the performance of those in an accountability measure. We see our district is trending upward, going from 69 to about 100 points. And as we do our analysis, we see that there are some areas in terms of instruction and curriculum that we're going to focus on this school year, because those were the analysis points that we noted when we looked at the grade analysis on our English exam. For instance, main idea and the tone of the text, having youngsters compare and contrast, understanding the different text features, referring back to details in text, using context, so that cause and effect relationship, and writing. When you look at the analysis of writing, you can really gain a number of points just by really taking time in writing and really that analysis and referring back and citing textual evidence. When we look at the performance index by school, we see that we have grown as well. We see a number of our schools on our continuum. So as we move on to mathematics, we see, and I'm very excited to share, that all of our elementary and middle schools have increased in their proficiency rate. That means there's an increase of our level 3s and 4s on our state mathematics exam. So Hamilton School, for instance, increased by 17%. Rebecca Turner by 14, Columbus by 11, Williams School by 6%, A.B. Davis by 6%. And as a district, we are trending upwards, understanding that it is a continuum on our journey to greatness and success. Although we have a ways to go, we are trending in the right way, so our trajectory is moving forward. As we look at the proficiency rate school by school, high school, you can see the increase in level 3s and 4s. And this speaks to value and our analysis over time, and the concerted effort of everyone working as a team. As we look at our mathematics proficiency by grade, this speaks to the curriculum and instructional focus for this year, which deals with building upon the different mathematical concepts and the complexity of the different tasks that students are to complete. At grade 3, multiplication in a real-world application, reading an analog clock, fraction equivalency. By grade 4, we're deepening that work. By grade 5, geometry, rounding decimals. At our grade 6 level, we're looking at interpreting fractions and solving word problems. By grade 7 and 8, understanding that's the building blocks, because we're moving forward for our and moving forward to our goal of post-secondary success, so probability and proportions. So we're deepening the work, understanding that mathematics is a building block and there's a spiraling of various skill sets. As we're looking at our performance index, our schools are different places in their continuum. As we look at ELA and mathematics, we are trending in the right direction, having increases district-wide. As we go on to our secondary schools, now we talked about pre-K, elementary, and middle. Our secondary schools have various measures to show their level of accountability with New York State Education Department. And one measure is our Regents scores. What is significant and very exciting about this particular data set is that you notice the scoring is 65 to 100, because that speaks to passing rate. But this most significant piece is really the cusp of that, I would say 84 going into that 85 to 100. Why? Because that really speaks to college and career readiness. That means that youngster does not have to take remedial courses as they go on to college. So that's really where we are in terms of our data trend and really helping our youngsters understand the significance of doing well, of really working hard with integrating writing throughout. Looking at the performance index, if you notice the tremendous growth of our high schools. In terms of mathematics, you see the continuum of their performance index as well. Now, when we look at mathematics, notice the difference between English language arts and mathematics. So again, we're working very diligently for our college and career readiness at all of our high school levels and district-wide, but we are moving in the right direction. Graduation rate, another significant measure in terms of accountability. Our district graduation rate over time has steadily increased. In fact, under Dr. Hamilton's leadership, a growth of 11%. Significant. Understand that when we talk about graduation rate, there are oftentimes two measures that are reported. You have your four-year outcome in June, so you have your June snapshot as well as your August snapshot. And what I want you to understand is the trends in our high school are moving in the right direction. So this is our June snapshot. If you notice, in our high schools, our graduation rate has increased. And the most significant, I just want to share, if you haven't noticed, is Thornton High School. Significant, well above the state standard of 80%. Now, let's look at each high school separately, in particular, the August snapshot. Why August? Because oftentimes in August, that gives us that room because we submit our data to the state in the fall. Remember, this is lag data, so this is a year ago. And the significant, place that I want you to focus on is the increase in the graduation rate in terms of the analysis. And meeting with each of the school leaders, I want you to see that this August snapshot will increase. Why? Because we're in August right now. The data is reported in the fall, so we're expecting all of our graduation rates to increase. So that is really a wonderful place. In August, because we have a number of interventions, summer school, that helps to bring up our numbers. And as I was sharing, Thornton High School. So the vision of Dr. Hamilton and the mantra is pre-K is really the building blocks, that foundation for post-secondary success or college. One of the goals that I want you to note is that our youngsters now are understanding the importance of various options in their lives. And if you notice, a few years ago in school year 2013-14, we had more students that applied to two-year colleges, community colleges. Now we have an increase of students that are enrolling and going to four-year colleges and universities, and that is significant in terms of their economic options, in terms of their career choices. So we see that there has been, at Mount Vernon High School, for instance, a decrease in two-year enrollment and a significant increase in four-year enrollment. So that speaks to really the work of our counseling department and the concerted effort as a team. This is very significant at Thornton High School, where we have students that are saying, I'm going to a four-year college or university, of 37 percentage points. Awesome. As well as Mandela School, the students saying, I'm going to college. So this really speaks to really helping our youngsters and equipping them. And how did this happen? It wasn't just alone. One of the things we've looked at is systems and the structure for success. 3 years ago, there was an invitation meeting for our seniors at that time, and talking to them and their counselors coming in and sharing and imparting information about college and universities. Now, every grade level has that. So information is shared, and our youngsters are armed. They're really thinking about life outside of Mount Vernon after high school and their dreams and their goals and aspirations. So 3 years ago, an evening parent night, and now a morning and an evening, so that parents have information really according to their schedule. We have more college fairs. We have a number of technologies so that youngsters are able to access this information quickly. If you notice, all of the universities, all of the wonderful college acceptances, from universities that are CUNY and SUNY to those that are private, across the country. So the good news is that we're really on the right trajectory. And so what does this mean in terms of our data trends? Why share this data? What are the implications in terms of what we're doing? For one thing, you have to share this information in the schools. So we've shared this at the administrators retreat, sharing this for our school leaders, and then for teachers. In our lower grades, we're still focusing on phonemic awareness so that the students understand phonemes or letter sound recognition. Our intervention with Dibbles and in-class circle and Waterford. For our grades 3 through 8 students, we're continuing on with our new standards as well as our iReady assessments, our beginning, middle, and end of the year data snapshots. This year we will have our anthology, our ELA anthology called Journeys, that will be implemented in grades 3 through 5 so that we have a standard anchor text in the classroom. Envisions mathematics, if you notice the rise in mathematics, so it's a hands-on differentiated mathematics program. We also have our technology programs from iReady to Achieve 3000, Read 180 that will continue. At our secondary level, we have a number of our options in terms of CTE, of course, Regents Prep and Avid. Very excited about the creation of the STEAM High School, which really offers our high schools of excellence, which is part of the 2020 vision. We have our rollout of our H&H, Social Studies instructional materials. In terms of interventions, how are we supporting our teachers? How are we supporting our youngsters? Well, we have our standards administrators and instructional coaches offering support in the classroom. So there's common planning time for our teachers so that they can plan together and look at data. We've had schedulers to come in during the summer to support our school leaders to maximize instructional time. And of course, our year-long professional development. This week we had a wonderful time with supporting our new teachers, onboarding them in new teacher orientation. In terms of our students, this is very exciting. This is our year where we have our response to intervention, or RTI, for English language arts, as well as mathematics at our elementary school level. So the students are getting support in both of those major areas. Our extended day and our tutoring services that are offered through the Office of School Improvement. This year, very excited, we have our level libraries and our silent sustained reading that will be going on daily. And of course, an increase in student writing, because every assessment has writing as a key component. Many of you discussed the importance of strong partnerships with our district, as well as really engaging our 21st century learners through blended learning, through different credit recovery, through the use of Play-Doh, ongoing parent meetings, and really building in a data-infused and a driven culture through our data teams. So what are some of our next steps? Of course, bringing in parents in the community for ongoing meetings. We are working diligently to ensure that we are having instructional focused walks where we're looking at 4 key areas: engagement, questioning, and discussion, the learning environment, and key instructional practices in terms of problem solving. There's a great deal of work around data, as well as ongoing support for our teachers. So it's really about having opportunities for more literacy. And I just wanted to highlight one success, which was the Superintendent's Reading Challenge, where totally our youngsters read over 150,000 books. So again, so it's really truly the concerted effort of the entire community for success. And we are also looking forward to greater success this school year.
I could not be prouder of all of our staff and students for the extraordinary work that they have done to make this transformation a reality. I look forward to having Dr. Walden on Supt Scoop to talk to you in greater detail about some of our progress and where we're headed from here. We're spending time benchmarking our progress and setting new targets so that we continue to show improvement across our district. Joining me next will be an update on My Brother's Keeper. Part of the success of the school system can be attributed to increased cooperation between the City of Mount Vernon and our school district. To that end, about 18 months ago, at the urging of former board trustee Francis Nguyen and Delia Farquharson, the city and the school district partnered together to accept My Brother's Keeper Challenge. Today, we are ramped up and ready to go with the full program to ensure that young men of color have all the tools and resources necessary for success. Spearheading that effort is Brother Arthur Muhammad, who we welcome to our show at this time.
I already knew that I was going to go to college, from a young age. I definitely want to major in political science. After that, I'm going to get my law degree. Then I'm going to come back to Detroit, boost the economy, become the mayor or something, try to make the situation better for other people. I feel like I owe it to the city. I'm determined. It's going to happen. My name is Justin, and I am your dividend.
Brother Muhammad, welcome to Supt Scoop. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm very honored. Supt Scoop is a world-renowned show.
So why don't you begin by telling us a little bit about your background?
Born and raised in Mount Vernon, New York, proud son of this great city. As a young man, I got involved in hip-hop culture. Was one of the first artists in Mount Vernon to make a rap record back in 1984 on Tommy Boy Records. Had a great opportunity to travel around the world with rap as a young man. I was part of the Zulu Nation with Africa Bambaataa. Joined the Nation of Islam in 1988, but remained in hip-hop, remained in community activism. I used to work at Hot 97 for a couple of years. I used to work for Carl Kanai for a couple of years, but what I'm most excited about is everything that I've done in the community, from being the first program director for the SNUG program, which works with former gang members and try to direct them on the right path, to being the director of the ex-offender program for the city of Mount Vernon under former Mayor Davis. We helped to transition many young men who were in prison and reestablish them into the community, as well as being the former CEO of a company that I started called YAMA, which stands for Young African Military Martial Arts Mentoring Academy. So I love Mount Vernon community. When you cut me, I bleed burgundy and gold.
Well, one of the things that I learned very quickly through my student focus groups is that the students in Mount Vernon have tremendous respect for Brother Muhammad. So that is actually what initiated my contact to you about being involved with My Brother's Keeper. So talk to me a little bit about your involvement in that initiative to date.
Well, I'm very, very honored to be the district's liaison to the My Brother's Keeper Challenge and initiative. When I found out about the full scope of the program, I immediately wanted to be involved, because what interests me is not only the school district attacking and approaching the problems that affect our young men of color in particular, but to be a part of a community effort, a collaborative effort, is very exciting, because I think that we've never approached the problem from a civic, city, a school district standpoint. We've always been in our silos doing our best to address the problem. but for us to collaboratively work together, that's breaking down boundaries right there.
So for those who aren't familiar with My Brother's Keeper, why don't you take a moment to explain what is the initiative?
Excellent. My Brother's Keeper Challenge is an initiative or a challenge that our former President Obama, back in 2014, he issued a challenge to the community after studying the plight of young boys of color. He noticed that, we were lagging behind. All of the statistics showed that we weren't performing well. So he called forth the school districts, the cities, the municipalities. He called forth the private sector and people of goodwill and good character to come together and rally around certain points. In the study, he noticed that, our young people weren't coming to school ready to learn, not emotionally, not socially, and even educationally. So part of our efforts is to make sure that our parenting is stronger, so when they send their child to school, the child is ready to learn and compete. Also, to making sure our young people are on grade level. By grade 3, their reading level is on par. So we don't want our young people at 3 years old, because we know that readers lead and leaders read. Another initiative is that we want our young people to come in at least by 3rd grade to be on reading level or above reading level. We don't want them to be on the 2nd grade reading level in the 3rd grade, because they have to play catch up. So our partnership with Just Inspire is very important, because what it allows is, it allows young people in the daycares to be exposed to books and reading and be comfortable. And so we also want to ensure that our young people have a second chance if they mess up. That's very important, and that's near and dear to my heart, because youthful indiscretions sometimes will be a X that they have to live with for the rest of their lives. And so working with law enforcement, working with the court system is very important in the My Brother's Keeper initiative. And if you go to the district website, I know that we're going to have an extension explaining in detail what the challenge is all about.
Right. You gave me a great segue into another question. So I invited a good friend of mine, Wyclef, to come in, and I invited 100 young men of color, in addition to some other members of our community. Talk to me about that event from your perspective.
Man, it was phenomenal. The optics were phenomenal. We asked the young men to come dressed, suited and booted. So they had on their suits, their ties, nice haircuts. So that changed the whole dynamic of, just their character and their conversation. And it set the stage for some real talk. Each table, there were 10 tables with 10 youth at each table, accompanied by a male mentor. And there were questions that were posed to each table for them to talk about in a very real way. A lot of times when young people gather, they don't talk about the most civic topics. They don't necessarily talk about what's going on in current events or at the home. But this atmosphere allowed an opportunity just to talk about some real things. And we learned a lot of things. And one of the things that we learned is that young people want to have mentors in their lives. And, one of the outgrowths of that meeting is, as you know, we're going to start a comprehensive mentoring program,
Absolutely.
Which I look forward to. We want to try to pair 100 youth with 100 mentors ultimately, and that's powerful.
I think that is amazing. We have some footage from that event that I'd like to show our viewing audience.
This is the most important thing I want y'all to know, right? Do y'all know how boring the world would be if everybody just did the same thing? Like if we all came in with the same sneakers, we talked the same language, we all walked the same way. I want you to understand it's okay to just be yourself and be different. It's okay if you don't want to rhyme and you from the hood and you want to pick up your guitar and sing country music. It's perfectly okay. That comes from blues. It's all right. It's okay if you're like, man, I don't want to do this music thing. I want to be like Steve Jobs. People going to think I'm not cool, but I want to study more calculus. It's okay to learn math, because the only way you're going to stick out in this big world is you have to be yourself. God already blessed you with it all. He created you as an individual. So that means you have to be you. God-like, man-like, Asiatic-like. That's what I see in here, number gods. You feel me?
So as a follow-up to that, I'm also friends with Peter Guns from Love and Hip Hop, yes. And I've had conversations with him about coming in and doing an initiative. I think when kids have someone that they can really relate to, who they look up to for whatever reason, it makes the experience more real. So he's starting an initiative called Guns Against Guns. So I'm going to have him come in and do a follow-up and do a similar kind of forum to that.
Excellent, excellent.
So what do you see as the biggest challenge facing young men of color, not necessarily just here in Mount Vernon, but even on a national level?
I think the biggest challenge is what image do they accept? I think on television, social media, the internet encourages young people to accept an image of thug, an image of street, an image of hard, and that image has a shelf life of maybe 18 and 19 years old. But when you enter into the real world, having a thug image, a hard image, a street image is really countercultural. And one of the things that we want our young people to do is to be able to be successful in the corporate world, or be successful if they go to the military or wherever they go to. And so they have to have the people skills, the social skills, and the street way or the street style or the image, because it's not really real, it's an image that gets in the way of them growing up and being successful when they get older.
I think that's a very valid point. You know, I often talk to the kids about being able to code switch. Having your vernacular and what's appropriate in certain arenas when you're in social context with friends, and when you're talking to adults, or when you're interviewing for a job, or when you're going to interview for colleges. And our youngsters need more skills in their bag of tricks in order to know how to code switch.
Yes, sir.
I think that's a huge issue for us. So what sorts of opportunities are you identifying to ensure the success of the program?
We started recruiting male mentors for the mentorship program. We partnered with the Mount Vernon Police Department in August with the National Night Out initiative, and we started vetting, soft vetting, and intaking male mentors, and that was very exciting. We also did a youth summit this summer, which you spoke at, and it's featured in the Mount Vernon Inquirer newspaper, where we exposed them to some real talk. You mentioned Peter Guns earlier. It's very important that our young people have credible messengers in front of them, because they take the message more at heart. But we had an officer from the district attorney's office, and the title of his talk was, "What should you do if you get arrested? How to survive the encounter?" And he took the young people through some real life scenarios of being stopped in a car, being stopped in the street, how you should respond, what your constitutional rights are, what you should say, what you shouldn't say. Are you allowed to film? You know, that was very powerful. I mean, you could hear a pin drop, and the questions, I mean, lasted 15, 20 minutes. We also had a young man from Excelsior, the Excelsior program, explaining to them the college opportunities in New York State with the SUNY and the CUNY schools. That was very, very informative. Yes. As well as a young man from, his name is John Thompson, from the Galleria Mall. And he does all of the marketing in the Galleria Mall. But what was important, he shared his life story. He said he didn't go to college. He did graduate from high school. But what he did is he entered into the marketing world by volunteering, by asking questions, and by studying people who were very positive and prominent in that field. And when he got his shot, all of that additional information that he did in spite of school. And he said to everyone, I wish you do go to school, but let me tell you, if you have a dream and you want to pursue it, do not allow not going to school to be a barrier from you pursuing your dream. Read about it, learn about it, volunteer, get involved, and when you get your shot, then rise to the top.
So how has MBK been received by the community?
So far, so good. The community wants to get involved, and as we strengthen up our infrastructure in the next coming months, we're going to be coming to you, community, asking you to be involved, helping and getting in where you fit in, whatever your strengths are, wherever areas where you feel that you can help us. As we identify that, we're looking for you to get involved, because we want to make sure that our young people have every tool available to compete and to be successful in this society.
I think that's really important for our community to hear. I think the other thing that is important for us to talk about is this partnership between the city and the school district. From your perspective, why do you think that is so important that we work so closely with one another?
Again, the city of Mount Vernon, under the leadership of Mayor Richard Thomas and his representative, Brother Shane Brooks, for my brother's keeper, but the city is a separate government. The school district is a separate government. The city has its own set of challenges. The school district has its own set of challenges. And for centuries, or for at least many decades, we've operated separately. And so to come together and work together sends a great signal to our community, to ask the churches to come together, who kind of work separately as well. It's a great signal of how we are going to change the narrative of the city of Mount Vernon. We're only going to do it together. So it's been wonderful working with Shane Brooks and Damia Harris of the Mount Vernon Youth Bureau.
Amazing.
It's phenomenal. And if you just create the opportunity for unity, it'll be achieved.
So it's great to talk about these initiatives from an adult perspective, but when the rubber meets the road, how are our youth being impacted?
Our youth are being impacted, and one of the great ways is that when young people call you or they see you in the community and they stop you and they ask you about things that you promised, the things that you said about the My Brother's Keeper initiative, it indicates to me that they're very interested. And so we look forward in the next coming months as we roll out the programs that are directly attached to My Brother's Keeper. I look forward to young people coming in. We've collected names of young people that have been a part of our programs, and so we're just going to fill those slots in.
Oh, that's amazing. I know I have adopted a mentor in our district, and he actually graduated last year.
Excellent.
And we have a system where we communicate on a regular basis, and that relationship is really working out well. So I hope that I can somehow or another set the example for other mentors to follow. MBK is certainly an incredible program and a worthy initiative set up by our 44th president, President Barack Obama. I look forward to seeing the impact of the program on our city, on our schools, and more importantly, on our nation. Well, that's all the time we have today on Supt Scoop. I can't thank you enough for joining us. We are in ride for an incredible 2017-2018 journey to excellence as we continue to transform our district. I encourage you to go to our website, stay abreast on what's happening in our district, and pay attention to our progress academically. It is our way to restore public confidence in our school district and to applaud those teachers, those principals who are indeed making a huge impact to make a difference in our community. So thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Supt Scoop.